an author, a newsletter writer, a podcast host, a live show host, and friend of the program. He said bet on the Rams and bet on the Dolphins last week. I took the opposite on both. I was wrong. He was right. This guy's on a heater. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Lombardi.
Yeah. Hello. How we doing?
Lombo.
Hello there. How we doing?
Hey, I know you live over there, Jersey Shore. Were you ever worried that guy that moonwalked up out of the prison was going to make it to the house and maybe ruffle some feathers with the Lombos?
Oh, he had everybody here. He had everybody in complete. Everybody was panicked about him around this local area. I mean, the guy was out on vacation for 14 days. I don't know how the hell he did it. It was all over the news, and they couldn't find him. They had him surrounded. Then he broke into houses. He's stealing clothes. Yeah, we were all nervous. I mean, we were locking the doors. And with this little sleepy town I live in, you never lock the doors. But this one had us. I mean, that guy was out there. Thank God for that dog, Yoda. I mean, thank God tracked him down. It was big news. I mean, they broke in the local news when they captured him at 8:30. I heard my wife screaming, "They got him!" So everybody was happy.
Nice.
The boardwalk felt safe again.
Hey, sleep a little easier, now knowing that the 14-day vacation is over. And obviously you guys now, forever, where you live, will lock your doors every single day, just like all your neighbors. Let's not make a target out of the Lombos neighborhood.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. You picked the Rams and Dolphins last week. Obviously, it worked out. Why did you have so much belief in what we saw out of the Rams? And do you think this will continue for the foreseeable future with the Los Angeles Rams?
I think a lot of things we don't talk about enough in betting and handicapping games is what they talk about. What we used to talk about in the league quite a bit was the coaching matchups, right? And when you look at Shane Waldron against Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator of the Rams, Raheem Morris, and Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator up there, who was in Los Angeles, Morris had always had his number. I mean, Geno Smith threw 11 interceptions last year. 5 of them went to the Rams because they understand it. It's a game where if you have a feel for the coordinator, if it's a game where you understand what the coordinator's doing, no matter where the talent discrepancy might lie, you have a chance to close that gap. And I felt like I didn't think the Rams would win. I thought the Seattle could win, but I thought the Rams would keep it close. They kept both games close last year. I just felt like Miami was going to play well. Look, the Chargers defensively, for all the conversation and everybody talks about how good they are, I just feel like they rush past the quarterback. And, Bosa's great, and so is Khalil Mack. But to stop Tua, you have to pressure him in front. You have to get into the paint. And you have to make it a game to where it's not a 7-on-7 game. And if you stand in front of Tua, you got a chance. But if you let him set his feet and step up in the pocket, it's over. He's got the best receiver in all of football, and he could run by everybody. So for me, you give him a free release. I mean, here it is. The guy gets a free release. He runs across the middle, and next thing you know, it's 20 yards, and then he throws it up the field again. Same different look. The guy's great, and so if you don't get in front of him, if you circle Tua right there, there's nobody in front of him.
Yeah.
And
also,
the only way you can stop quarterbacks, I don't care if you ask Peyton Manning, if you ask any great quarterback, coverage doesn't bother him. What bothers him are people in their face. And if you don't get anybody in their face, he's going to have a hell of a day.
Miami having that type of protection without Teron Armstead was certainly a sign of hope for the entire Fins Up community, the Dolph fam. The Finn fam.
Talk mountain residents.
Bingo.
Yep.
The mountain, obviously, of people watching other people do things and saying stuff. Do you think that's sustainable here? Do we believe in them being the powerhouse of the AFC right now with Josh Allen not playing great, Joe Burrow not playing great? The Patriots obviously outperformed the Eagles offense somehow, but end up losing that particular game. Chiefs lose to the Lions, although they get Chris Jones and Travis Kelce back. How do you feel about the AFC? Are the Miami Dolphins the king of the hill right now, even though we didn't really chat about it much in the offseason?
Well, they gave away a lot of points. I mean, they ran the ball. Vic tried to play 2 high safeties, and the Chargers ran the ball up and down the field. They had great opportunity to win the game. They get the ball back. All they need is a field goal to win it, and they can't get it down the field. Herbert takes a really bad intentional grounding. I think people will play Miami differently than what the Chargers did. New England's held Miami to 20 points over 2 games. One of them was with Bridgewater. Hills had 19 targets in the 2 games against New England, averages 12 yards a catch, scored 1 touchdown. They'll do their best to take him out of the game. They'll make it a more physical game. Philadelphia, that was the first time on Sunday that the Eagles offense, you have to go back 27 games, Pat, where they were not as effective in offensively. They only gained 251 yards. It was back in Tampa, week 6 of the 21 season that they had less yards. So that was a really good defensive performance. But if you're a Patriot fan, the front of the Patriots did a tremendous job against a very good Eagle offensive line. They pushed them around a little bit, and they got to Hurt. I was really impressed with Jalen Hurt because he did not try to hurt himself. He took care of himself. He went down when he had to get down, and I think that was smart. And the Eagles were fortunate to win that game. The tape doesn't really tell you the Eagles won, but they did. And that defense of Philly tonight, they don't have Dean, the linebacker. He's on IR. They don't have Bradbury, and they don't have Reed Blankenship. Now, Blankenship became the green dot player after Dean got hurt. Now, that's a problem. Why? Because you got a new defense coordinator, and you got a new green dot player, and that guy's got to make all the checks. It's going to be hard for them defensively tonight.
Okay, so let's talk about tonight's game with Philadelphia and being difficult defensive-wise. Minnesota Vikings are out their starting center and probably their left tackle. I know we're worried about the secondary of Philadelphia. This defensive line, though, should feast tonight, shouldn't they? I mean, this is a setup for a Thursday night almost defensive line dominating performance.
Well, but last week, the New England started 2 rookie guards, both fourth-round picks in there. And the guards struggled late in the game, but they held their own. I mean, Mac Jones had time to throw the football, and then they started Calvin Anderson at right tackle, who's been in the league a while, but he has not been a full-time starter. And Hassan Riddick really didn't show up in the game. They did a nice job on him. They chipped him. They doubled him. They didn't let him beat him. Minnesota's going to be challenged up front. I mean, Tampa did a nice job, but they gained 273 yards passing in the first half, Pat, against Tampa.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have been a lead against them, and they kind of bumbled around and let it go. Now let's talk coaching matchup. Brian Flores is going to see what Belichick did against Philly. He's going to try to duplicate a little bit of that. But his front isn't as good as New England, so that'll be a little bit of a problem. I expect Philly to be able to move the ball, too. This could be a game where both teams effectively move the ball and score in the 20s.
Okay, Brian Flores, new DC for the Minnesota Vikings, by the way. You remember him in Miami Dolphins as the head coach, but people forget, before that, he was an incredible defensive coordinator for the Patriots up there. And then he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody loved him. Yep. Now he's running the Vikings defense. Now, Baker Mayfield had a heck of a weekend, so you're going to have to figure some things out. Who do you like tonight? You think good game tonight? It sounds like you're leaning Vikings.
I think it'll be. I'm hoping for a good game. That line is moving too, right? That line is there's some shops that has 6. I think it's moving. The Eagle injury situation is really tough. So is Minnesota. Short week. We know Cousins doesn't play great on the national television games, but he's got an opportunity against the secondary that he should be able to take advantage of. He still has Justin Jefferson. He still has Addison. He's got Hawkinson at tight end. They should move the ball. Madison, the running back's got to do a better job in blitz protection. That's going to be the key. First play of the game, they blitzed. Second play of the game, they blitzed them, and they did exactly what you have to do to Cousins. Hit him early in the game, and they did that. And I think that gets them off kilter a little bit. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think Philly comes back. I wouldn't have a play on this because I hate playing Thursday nights with all the injuries and the lack of certainty in terms of who's healthy and who's not.
Okay, I appreciate that, especially with how hot you are right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't feel forced to make a pick.
Well, I got some if you want some. I've gone through my notes this week. I like some games. I think, to me, this is an interesting board this week because, again, I approach it from the same way I approached it when I was in the league. The matchups. Let's go Tennessee, the Chargers. Okay. Last year, they played that game out in Los Angeles. It's a 14-10 game. Chargers got to score 10 points in the fourth quarter. Tannehill threw 1 interception. Malik Willis had to come in and out of the game. Tannehill kept getting hurt. They didn't have Jeffrey Simmons. I think this will be a different game. I would take Tennessee in the 3 points here. I know everybody thinks the Chargers are going to bounce back. I would take Tennessee in the 3 here because I think they held New Orleans to 16 points. They played They played well on defense. And offensively, Tannehill can't play any worse.
Well, and also,
they're going to be able to run the ball.
Hey, Lombo, with that Tennessee team, and obviously we were just chatting about it, and Coach Pagano here, joining us every Thursday, loves the officiating stuff. You know what I mean? He's very invested and interested in that whole thing. And we started looking into this past weekend's kind of discrepancy. Tennessee, I mean, they kind of got screwed. They kind of got screwed with Derek Carr, fumble, ball comes out.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, you're talking to 2X Raiders. We live in the world of getting screwed. You're talking to 2X Raiders. We are trained to make sure that we do. Every week, just so you know, Pat, I find out what game Scott Novak's officiating, and I stay away from that game. Like, I'm not touching that game. Scott Novak this week, he'll be on your national TV set. He'll be doing New Orleans, Carolina. I'm out. I promise you the over-under, 5 minutes into the game, he'll call a penalty. I'm done. I would not recommend that game to anybody, but you got to do it. We lived in that world, Pat. I mean, you kidding me? That when the tuck happened, and all I heard about was Art McAnally and how he's been after the Raiders his whole career, from the immaculate reception to the tuck.
Well, that was a catch, obviously. Yeah. It was in the airport in Pittsburgh. It was certainly a catch. We know that. We've seen all the tapes. They slowed it down. What a great grab, too. Just like Julian Edelman right there in the Super Bowl.
A little different, but yeah.
Yeah, no, the first one time. Yeah, it was the first one.
Edelman, the ball never actually made contact with the ground.
They neither did that. What are you talking about?
There's freeze frames. I'm not saying it's not a catch.
One was luck and one was skill.
But if you think about it, let's just get this back to the kind of the conversation here. Tennessee Titans should be 1-0.
Yeah.
Like, that's how the Tennessee Titans feel. And we had no conversations about them this offseason in the AFC South and AFC conversation, nothing at all. I think we see a good Tennessee team. Chargers, though, if they were playing against anybody else but the Dolphins in that week one, if you look at how some teams performed, most teams performed, they're 1-0 as well. They got to be feeling good going into that one. I like the fact you like Tennessee. Who else do we like this weekend, Lombo?
I always go back to it again. I think Denver, Sean Payton's had success against Jack Del Rio 2 years ago with Jameis Winston playing quarterback. He put up 380 yards. They moved the ball against the Washington front in New Orleans. And he didn't have Drew Brees. He had Kamara, and Kamara was the leading receiver and the leading rusher in the game. But I think Sean understands how to attack Del Rio. I think he understands how to handle it. And I worry about Sam Howell playing in the altitude with the crowd noise as a rookie. He kind of was off to a shaky start. Now, Eric Bieniemy has an opportunity here because he's played against Denver, Vance Joseph. Remember, last year in the opening game, Kansas City opened against Arizona. That was Vance Joseph's defense. But he's not going to be able to take that game plan with him to this game. It's going to have to be a little different, and I would suspect that Denver would be problematic for Washington to move the football. I would lay the points here and take Denver. I think Denver will be. This is a big game for Russell Wilson. Let me just say that they've got to play better. Jerry Jeudy may play in the game. He practiced yesterday in a bigger role. I think that's going to help him. You can't have 37 attempts and throw for 177 yards. You just can't do that. You can't do that and win games in the NFL. And I think Russell needs to get the ball down the field. Will Lutz hurt him last year, missed the extra point, missed the long field goal. They got to do better in that area. But I think Sean knows how to attack Del Rio.
Okay, so we got the Denver Broncos and Tennessee Titans as this week's Paisano picks from Lombo. He's 2-0 on the season. Let's remember that. And we're going to stay hot this weekend. We appreciate that. Ty Schmidt Ty Schmidt has a question for you about a young quarterback.
Yeah, Lombo, when you look at the Falcons last week, granted they played against Bryce Young and the Panthers, who, his first start and everything. A lot of people in the Falcons building, I think, really believe in Desmond Ridder. And then you look on the internet and kind of all the experts saying, like, hey, this guy, he's just not the guy. He's not going to be able to lead them to the playoffs this year. What was your takeaway watching him play in week one? And also, what do you think about that matchup this week? I think the Packers opened as the favorites, and that line is kind of flipped now, and the Falcons are. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think Desmond Ridder tries to play the game too carefully. He's scared to put the ball in the tight windows. I don't think he trusts his accuracy. He was 15 for 18 last week for like 120 yards. You're not beating anybody throwing for that, 18 attempts. And so, but I think he's really scared. And when you watch the last 4 games of last year, he didn't want to throw it into any conflict. He wanted to protect the football as best he could. And when you do that, you don't make any plays. You've got to be able to throw the ball into tight windows to win. And I don't think he trusts his accuracy. And Arthur Smith does an incredible job of game planning the run. Walker, the linebacker for the Packers, may not play. He's in concussion protocol. That could be a real issue.
Punt return.
That could be an issue. I think that could be. But I think Green Bay did a really good – I thought what Matt LaFleur did last week was he decided to run an offense that fits his quarterback, right? There's no more Aaron Rodgers offense because he's not there. And he featured Aaron Jones A.J. Dillon didn't have a great game, but they tried to get him the ball. Jones is with a hamstring too. I don't think Watson's going to play, but I think Dobbs played last week. I like Green Bay's defense, but the one thing that would prevent me from talking about this one is I worry about Green Bay's run defense at times. They have a hard time, and I think Arthur Smith does a great job of scheming that run. I think that's going to be an issue. And plus, you got to go on the road and play in a dome. That's never easy for a young quarterback.
Bijan's the real deal, feels like. And the Falcons knew that with the game that they were playing. They knew Bijan was the real deal, have to get a dub. They're 1-0. You're talking about Arthur Smith's run game. The way he sets up the leverage and the blocking and the holes, it is perfect for Bijan to do his thing. I don't even think we got a big dose of the Joker, Cordero Patterson, just yet. Once that gets added in, I think they're off to a great start, and I think they feel very comfortable going against the Packers. But what a little litmus test here, test here for Jordan Love early. Going to be a tough game. Excited to see how he handles it. Connor has a question for you about the New York Jets. Are they going back in time in the future? What's the right decision? Go ahead.
Yeah, Lombo, as a Patriots fan, obviously you kind of saw this coming with the Jets. Something always goes wrong. It's just inevitable. They're cursed, and I feel terrible about it, but that is just kind of how the cookie crumbles. How do you feel about the Zach Wilson decision? Do you think that's real, first of all? Are they actually going to go with him for the entire year no matter what? And where do you think they look to? I saw Brissett. There was a report that they had internal conversations about possibly acquiring Jacoby Brissett. Some people have thrown out Andy Dalton as a possible suitor to go up there. What do you think is going to happen up there, and how do you think the rest of the season goes for them?
I think they have to take the approach. They got to do the best they can with Zach Wilson. I relate it to there's a scene in the movie Apollo 13 when those astronauts are stuck up in space and the scientists bring in this giant box and they throw it on the table and they say, we got to take this, make it into that using nothing but this. And they got to make Zach Wilson better. They've got to run an offense that fits Zach Wilson. They're going to have to maximize everything they can in their defense and their special teams like they did on Monday night. The season's not hopeless for them. They're good on defense. They can win the kicking game. They just can't let Zach Wilson go out there and beat them. They can't throw it 30 times. They can't get behind in games. There's a formula for them to keep winning. I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl, but there's a formula for them to keep winning, and they have to play to that formula. They've got to be conservative a little bit, not to let Zach Wilson beat them, and he's got to show that he's willing to be prepared for the game, be conscientious. But there's no savior out there. They're not going to bring somebody in who's going to make them better. If there was quarterbacks out there, these teams wouldn't be so desperate for quarterbacks. They've got to make it. They got to do the old Steven Stills thing. They got to love the one you're with. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but that's where Nathaniel Hackett and Robert Saleh, that's where they come in. They've got to redefine the identity of their offense. They know where their strengths are. They've got great receivers. The offensive line isn't great, but they got a good running, but they got two really good running backs. This is their chance. This is their job. There's a formula to win the game. Bill Parcells used to say this all the time. His high school coach, Mickey Corcoran, used to tell him, there's a way to win every game. You just got to figure it out. And that's the challenge for the Jets. They can win, but they got to figure it out.
If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with.
Pat.
What a song. What an absolute song. And that's a real situation. Because that storyline about Aaron Rodgers all offseason, it was like, hey, the Jets love this guy.
Oh, yeah.
He loves this guy. Then all of a sudden, 4 plays in, it's like, well, love the one you're with. Yeah, gotta make that decision quickly. It's a whole new. The thing that I didn't fully understand about like veteran quarterback getting brought in there was like, okay, so this veteran quarterback's got to come in and learn Nathaniel Hackett's offense completely, learn in the middle of a season that's taking place, and then what's the deal look like? What if they have success? You got Aaron coming back next year, seemingly from his Instagram post,
right?
Seemingly he's coming back from this Achilles injury at the age of 39. It's like you bring in a vet. Best case scenario, they have success. Then what?
Then what?
Then what is the city? You have to go with Zach Wilson. That's a great song to kind of link up those two, which is something your big brain does. Paisano, Coach Pagano, former Raider with you, has a question.
Yes.
Hey, Lombo. Good to see you, man. Congratulations on the book as well.
Hell yeah, Lombo.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Hey, so I saw your comments, and I felt the same way watching that Chargers game against Tua and the Dolphins and Tyreek. You go back to last year, right? They won that game 23-17, and you saw the defensive plan. They held Tua, I think, to a season low as far as pass yards. Tyreek had one play, the corner 43 fell down on him, And so I'm going to ask you as a former GM, like you're Tom Telesco, right? And you've got this unbelievable quarterback. You got these aliens on offense that you can score points, right? What kind of conversation would you have one at this point? What kind of conversation would you go into Brandon and say, look, because it was a head scratcher, like play all that man coverage when he played a bunch of like disguised Tampa last year, jam reroute, let the rush get home. Your point about rushing the middle of the pocket, not letting him step up. What's the conversation you'd have, if there is one?
You know, the only way I would say this to him, I'd say, Brendan, I'm not second guessing. I'm not first guessing. I'm second guessing. I'm not second guessing. I'm telling you this from the start. We have to play to our strengths, and we've got to be able to make the other team play left-handed. We're not good enough to go out there and swing toe-to-toe. Nobody is. And if we don't use our intelligence to make the other team play left-handed, if we lost to Miami and somebody else beat us, then I'm okay with it. But if we go to the game saying we can't let Tyreek Hill beat us and he beats us, that's on us. That's not on the players. We didn't do our justice to the players. This is a big Al Davis thing. Like, did we give our players a chance to really be the best they could be? And I think, to me, that was heartened when I watched that game because, you know, the guy's getting a free release. Nobody's taking steam off him. He's the fastest human on the planet. I mean, he's got super speed. He's got incredible hands. Right. And then what I would also say is if we have all these rushers and we're paying our two guys.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.